Ender 3 skipping more steps than kids playing hopscotch, crazy hardcore testing eggs from E3D that definitely don't fail all the time, and Uncle Jessy having a couple small issues. All this and more, PrintFix Friday, episode 31. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to PrintFix Friday. Remember, if you are trying to get your fails looked at by an expert, I'm the expert-ish. You can do so by tagging us on all the social medias that you have. You can DM us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and use the hashtag PrintFix. We want to go through and find those fails so we can help you fail less. Or you're just trying to show off a pretty gnarly fail. I always do enjoy seeing things that surprise the hell out of me. We're going to be starting off with an Ender 3 that is just skipping steps in the Y-axis like it's going out of style. You guys might already know what the problem is, but stay tuned, I think you're going to enjoy the solution. Next, we're going to move into an E3D Hemera that got a little hungry and decided to just start rolling filament around the extruder drive gear. From there, we move into the Sam Squanch, showing us an E3D egg that is just having some problems, and we have a few of our own that didn't go all that well. After that, we move into a Prusa that's got some brown stains on it. Does it smell funny? Who knows? Let's find out. And we're going to end it off with a fail from my buddy Uncle Jessy, who's been messing with that brand new AnkerMake. So if you want to hear my thoughts on it, make sure you stay till the end of the video. But you know what isn't a failure? My segue to our sponsor, 3D Musketeers. If you are looking to fail less and you have just been struggling with 3D printing, because ultimately it is not the easiest thing on the planet, we're not going to lie about it, you can reach out to the pros at 3D Musketeers. We have over 35 printers now to help you make awesome every single day. Whether it's small parts on a Prusa that are going to piss me off because they keep failing, or they're nice, easy pieces for a couple of bucks a piece, we are here to help you make awesome. And if you have a small business where you are looking to make small production runs and your machines are at full capacity, hit us up. We have extra room on our machines where we can go ahead and help you take care of those extra orders when they come through. And by the way, we help inventors get those ideas out of their head and make really awesome things. We just finished up a massive project with a video that was over 100 gigabytes of raw footage of just the filming of putting it all together. I'm excited to share that with you guys soon, so make sure you get subscribed. But if you do want to help out what we do here at 3D Musketeers, you can kick a couple of bucks to the Creator Fund over on Patreon, patreon.com/3D Musketeers. But enough of me, let's get into these fails. My print keeps skewing on the Y-axis. My printer is an Ender 3 V2, and I use Ultimaker 2 as my slicer program. I'm guessing you mean Cura. My last few prints have all ended up like this. My printer settings have been messed with by my cousin, given a link to the Thingiverse page. This is what I'm trying to print. Belts. Check yo belts, son. Generally going to be a complete and utter belt issue, so check to make sure your belts are tight. The nice thing about the Ender 3 V2 is that it has the little blue wheels on it that allow you to actually tension your belt without doing too much BS. So it's actually pretty easy to do. If your belt is a little twangy already, check to make sure that the motor pinion, the geared pulley that moves the belt, is actually tight against the motor itself. You might actually have one that's loose, causing it to move around and skip like this. I don't particularly think that's the problem because this seems like it's skipping steps in one direction only, but I'd be willing to bet it's going to be your belts, because we're not seeing any issues indicative of a print strike or anything like that. And the first comment here, I think, hits the nail right on the head. This is exactly what I would be looking at doing. Again, check the Y belt tension and the little gear on the Y motor. If both of those are tight, well, you've got yourself another problem. It could be board related, but I'm going to assume it's not. Ryan at V1 Engineering on Twitter says, Monday. Bro, I feel you. This is an interesting fail. So this is one of the internal drive gears on an E3D Hemera. We can see the open Hemera in the background there, and filament that has just wound itself around, but not only wound itself around, but also gone completely all contorted and flattened out. We've seen this only a couple of times before, and this one is absolutely the worst time that I've ever seen it happen. I'd be curious to know if that Hemera is still going to be functional when all of this is done, but E3D does make a nice bit of kit, so I wouldn't be too surprised if it works perfectly fine without any issues whatsoever. How can you avoid this, though? This one's a bit of a tough one. I don't see any print on that bed. Maybe they took it off already, but my best guesstimate here is that they might not have watched that first layer, or they've got one hell of a cooling fan here that might have cooled their nozzle off so much that it basically clogged. The Hemera being a geared extruder means that it has a ton of torque. And if you've got a clog and you've got enough space for it to start wrapping filament, well, forces are going to take over, and this is what you end up with. Maybe take a look at adding a silicone sock. I mean, that's one of the things I would look at, but this to me is more of a freak accident than anything else. Verify that things aren't running too fast, you're not overrunning your hot end. We can definitely see some other shmoo back here on the Hemera itself. Give this thing a good clean while it's open. Clean the whole damn thing. Make sure that all the gears are clean, the bearings are clean of crud, make sure to re-lubricate stuff that needs to be lubricated, and go ahead and reassemble it and torque it down. Now's a better time than any to go through and do that printer maintenance that we all definitely neglect way more than we should. But I know this feeling, one of these freak accidents when you're like, gosh, I don't know how the hell this shit happens sometimes, but it just does. Next up from my buddy Sam Squanch, at the Sam Squanch on Twitter, they've got their first attempt at the E3D. Egg had them on their edge of their seat waiting for it to fail. They walk out of the room for 15 minutes and come back to this beauty. Maybe they should have tuned this profile a little bit before trying this one, slowing it down, going again. I feel you. My first one failed at almost this exact same area. The egg is designed to be a massive torture test. We're actually running one right behind me. We'll put them on the screen so you guys can actually see them, because I'm only going to run this one more. If it fails, it fails. Sometimes failure happens, and on these torture tests, failure is always an option. Yes, you could put a brim on it. We talked about that, but E3D says, no brim for you.
No soup for you.
And that's because this is all about making sure that your first layer is tuned perfectly, your retraction is tuned perfectly. But if you notice, ours is running with a +5 or so difficulty modifier. We have the actual time lapse running. And I'll show you, it takes a while to do the actual photos itself. There you go. Look at how long that wait is. Now, that is required to trigger my ancient, circa 2006 Sony Alpha 100 DSLR camera. But it makes great time lapses, so, you know, why not? Might as well repurpose the old gear rather than turning it into e-waste, right? And that's the issue that we run into on things like this. It makes for a really dope time lapse and will probably make for an amazing fail. I haven't looked at the photos yet. I just found the spaghetti. This is perfectly normal, though. If you're having issues with build plate adhesion, make sure that you have your build plate totally clean. If you're running a PEI build plate like we do on the Prusas, make sure that it is cleaned with alcohol when you can, acetone if you can, right? Some plates like acetone, some don't. It tends to make PEI a little bit brittle, so be careful about acetone. Make sure that your first layer is tuned perfectly. And again, this thing is designed to be torturous, so some failure is completely and utterly fine. But I thought this was a good one because, well, we're doing the same thing and having the same issues. But if we look, they've got a success, some stringing, some blobbing. Again, that's going to be pretty typical. And like they said, yeah, it needs more cooling. And it looks like they might have had some issues there. We have a couple of lines that didn't catch. You can see on E3D's Twitter page that they kind of know what they're doing here. They know that it's a torture test. And I think the best one, maybe it's the best one, I don't know what their judgment is, but they're going to give a Revo Micro and or 6 I think it's maybe an or 6 up for grabs, and 2 of them, I'm assuming, to 2 individuals. And all I gotta do is print out the file, of course, available on printables.com. We'll link to it in the description, so maybe you can get in on the fun. That's a pretty good print. I'm gonna give it to E3D. That's a pretty good print. We can see, this is the cool thing about printables, it's got the 3D file viewer. It is no small task. And if we look at it in the slicer itself, you can see there are a lot of overhangs on this thing, and a bunch of really small parts that require incredible cooling. Like, look at all that extra overhang. And you know what? If it ain't perfect, I'm okay with that as long as we can get a success. A success would be kind of what we're going for on this. But yeah, when you're running a time lapse, you really are adding a massive difficulty modifier to something like this. Even their first few layers have quite a few areas where they have overhangs and would require a massive amount of cooling to make sure you don't have any drooping. The inside as well, with these miniature eggs inside of a large egg. It's like a nesting egg, but it's all printed in place. I think these contests are really cool, and it's a great way for E3D to do their marketing. We can see that 276 times this model has been downloaded, 23 times people have posted makes, and 33 likes. And when you're done with it, post a make a comment so people can see. And there are some pretty decent ones here. I mean, they finished, which puts them ahead of me. But I do dig it. It's a great little torture model. Definitely needs some more cooling on that one. Oh, look, a Voron having issues with printing. PLA, what a surprise. I mean, what? Mine failed right about here as well. A lot of bit of stringing. Oh, there's Sam Squanch put his up on printables. Gotta love that. I dig it. I like this kind of thing from E3D. i3 MK3S Plus weird black / burnt extrusion. I've never printed it with black or dark gray. How do I fix this? This is shmoo on your hot end. My bet is that you are not running a silicone heater sock. Fix that immediately. It is one of the things that I don't understand why Prusa does not include. The silicone heater sock, while it does insulate the hot end quite a bit more than it would when it's just bare metal, it also keeps plastic crap from sticking to the hot end itself. Let me show you. This was the former hot end that we were running in our time-lapse printer. It is an E3D V6 with a titanium heat break, copper block, and I think this is just a regular hardened steel nozzle. It might be a Nozzle X. I don't know for sure. It's been a while. But this thing has always carried a silicone sock on it, and it is reasonably clean. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's reasonably clean. That is because that silicone sock protects it from the elements of garbage filament. You should also be looking at making sure that your heat break is tight up against the nozzle. If you've never adjusted this or changed your nozzles, it's probably fine, but it's a good thing to check. Heat the printer to 285 degrees. Make sure you put a pair of pliers on the block. Be careful not to short or break any wires. And then use a nut driver or a spanner wrench to go ahead and tighten the brass nozzle against the heat break. Do not over tighten this. It is very easy to over tighten it and strip out your aluminum heater block. Not that that's happened to me a couple of times, but I believe it's one of those rites of passage that comes with 3D printing in general. I have a stronger suspicion that this is just little wispies. We can see a little bit of stringing on this that have collected onto the heat block itself, that have just gotten to a point where they've fallen off and into the print. As long as just on the exterior, you can just cut it off with a pair of side cutters and you'll be just fine. But to prevent this in the future, make sure to tune your retraction settings for your filament itself. Don't always trust stock settings, although generally speaking, they're pretty decent. And if you don't have one already, run a silicone sock. I don't know why Prusa doesn't include them. I'm sure it has something to do with the way they've set their PID tunes as well as their cooling solutions. But you know what? It just works for me, and I find myself not dealing with blobs of doom that are incredibly difficult to get off because they've welded themselves around the block itself, because the silicone sock will normally save you. The socks are dirt cheap. I mean, you're talking a couple of bucks a piece for official ones, and that is cheap insurance for a 3D printer. I promise. It's worth it. Do the upgrade. The first comment: wispy strands of plastic, it accumulates and will eventually form a burnt blob that deposits on your print. Having a silicone sock helps reduce. Oh my god, Reddit is knocking it out of the park. I love it. This is the right comment. You're going to get an upvote from me. With PETG, it is hygroscopic. This is not wet filament, as most people say, but as PETG does get wet, as it absorbs that moisture, it does get a little bit stringy. So if you're noticing your PETG is getting a little bit stringy, toss it in a dryer and you'll see it improve considerably over the course of the print. It's worth it if you have one laying around. If you don't, it's okay. You'll deal with some extra strings, and a little tiny microbutane torch will solve all of those problems anyways. Coming out from my main man, Uncle Jessy, former podcast guest. If you want to see me interview Uncle Jessy Clayton and to talk all about his experience in this industry and what it was like working on being a maker and now a full-time YouTuber. By the way, Uncle Jessy, congratulations on the 300,000 subscribers, dude. You have worked your ass off to get there. But Uncle Jessy is taking a look at the ever popular AnkerMake 3D printer. It's available on Kickstarter. According to Linus Tech Tips, their short circuit channel completely took one apart. There are only 13 of these in existence right now, and they're built like Swiss watches. Honestly, the build quality from looking on the inside of it is astounding to me, and I am not going to back the Kickstarter because I don't do those kinds of things, and Anker is not working with us, talking with us, or sending us anything. So what you get out of me here is just my basic opinion on it. I don't think the printer's capable of reaching 250 millimeters per second. Not as quickly as he is getting there. Don't get me wrong, it is definitely printing fast, and whatever they're doing to the G-code to get it to do that, or the heater system, they've done a good job. I'm not a huge fan of the screen moving up and down. I don't know, it just seems to take up a lot of extra real estate where we pack our printers relatively close to each other, and that just seems like you're taking up unnecessary space where it could easily go down here where it's not going to be in the way of everything. But I think that Anker really took their time in looking at the engineering in this, and quite frankly, it has surprised me by being considerably better than I expected. But to give you guys an idea, he said 6.5 hours at 0.2 millimeters at 250 millimeters a second. The Neptune 2 with a 0.6 nozzle at 0.2 millimeters and 80 millimeters a second was 6 hours and 46 minutes. This shows you that they're not accelerating at the rates they say they are. 2,500 millimeters per second squared acceleration would have finished this way faster. And I know that the 0.6 nozzle is doing something here, but the layer heights are also the same. If anything, the Neptune is having to work harder because that is very fast for a printer without an all-metal hot end, and especially one with a larger diameter nozzle. So, I don't know. I think it would have been cool for us to see the weight of the print as well, but let's get into the actual print itself. We got a Loki crown here and a gorgeous rainbow PLA. I'm guessing this is Zealtech. Oh yeah, it is. That is a typical Zealtech spool. We are resellers of them and have an affiliate code in the description if you guys are looking to get some. It's only, you know, like 5%, but hey, every penny counts. The filament's not bad. It's actually not. I don't mind it. But we are actually mostly printed solid these days, personally, here in the shop. We can see it looks pretty darn good on this side, but the other side, remember kids, if you like it, then you should put a brim on it. This is absolutely a bed adhesion problem. I don't think this is support. The interior bit here looks like it's supported pretty well. I mean, I could get a little nitpicky, but at the end of the day, this is like, there are so few of these printers out in the wild. I can't fault him for not having perfect slicer settings because they don't even have a perfect slicer yet. So, you know, that's my personal thought there. It just looks like the printer knocked off the part and it figured itself out eventually. Unless this is only supposed to have one wing, but it doesn't appear to be that way. So there we go. He knows it added a brim so it doesn't sling off one of the sides and added a few more supports. We'll check back in the afternoon. Great technique, good form, really interesting printer. I'm excited to see more come out of this. Ooh, and I see a cheeky piece from Loyal Moses down there, the Fix'em Dude droid that was done through his Patreon page from his Twitch channel. I dig it. I love the color. I'm just enjoying the color. Bummer that thing failed because that was a really nice rainbow transition. Speaking of rainbow transitions, that's all that I have for you guys today. Let me know down in those comments if I got them right. And if you want to see other fails, remember, you can tag us on all the social medias. Links will be here on screen as well as down in the description below using the hashtag PrintFix and just add us so we can easily see it. And that way we and go through and take a look at your fails, because I do enjoy doing this every single week, and I hope you guys do as well. But stay safe out there, don't forget to call your loved ones, and as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one. Okay, see you, bye. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. If you're looking for something else to watch, the entire PrintFixFriday series is right below me. And an especially massive thank you goes out to all of our Patreon and YouTube channel member supporters whose names are listed right next to me at the $5 tier and higher. And right next to the entire PrintFixFriday video series is going to be the printer maintenance series, as it always is. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'll see you guys down in the comments and in the next one. Take care.